Fabulous. Good morning, everyone. This is Karen A, live from Jerusalem, Israel. An addict working this program in recovery every day, one day at a time. Welcome to the Afro-Euro Reco12 podcast. Reco12 offers a repository of recovery resources online at Reco12.com. Whether you're a love addict, an alcoholic, a sex addict, a Narcotics Anonymous member, an overeater, undereater, anorexic, bulimic, gambler, debtor, Emotions Anonymous, codependent, Al-Anon, and feel free to add anything else to the list. We think that you can hear something from someone who just might relate to you or who you just might relate to. We've got recordings at Reco12.com from people suffering from all addictions, all afflictions, whether those are people, behaviors, or substances. We invite you, if you are recovered, to reach out to us. I will put my number in the chat, or you could check out Reco12.com. There's a place to upload a little speaker share or to reach out to Justin B, our founder. Or you can hit me up directly. I'm always looking for new speakers with different addictions, afflictions, different recovery stories and messages to share with the man who is possibly dying. If you would like to contribute a seventh tradition, you could do so at Reco12.com/support. And we do accept PayPal and Venmo. This morning, it is my great privilege to invite Mazal. Wait, I see your last name starts with an E here, but I remember Mazal G for some reason. Is that right?
That's good. Yeah, I haven't changed it yet on Zoom, but I'm
pretty sharp now that the brain is cleared in recovery, right? We're sharp like that. So I'm happy to present Mazal G from Israel, and she's going to share a story on a great topic we've never had on here. I'm so excited to hear it because I always ask myself with different slaws, love addicts, codependents that I've worked with, how do they do this? Mazal is going to share with us about sober dating. Mazal is going to share with us for about 30 minutes. Mazal, we're not so super strict here, although we could try and time you could time yourself. We're not super strict here because if you've got something to share, we want to hear it. And then at the end of that, we're going to take Q&A. All y'all on this line, first of all, welcome. Thank you for joining us. You could post your questions in the chat, even while Mazal is talking, if you don't want to forget them. And she'll either read them off at the end, or you can unmute yourself and ask questions at the end of an hour, or if questions have dried up before then, we will have a moment of prayer and then go on to make the world a better place. Before Mazal starts, we just take a minute to pray for the addict, codependent, afflicted people who are still suffering. And please join me in the Serenity Prayer. You can do the V version if you want to unmute. Grant us the serenity.
God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change. The courage to change the things we can. And the things we can.
No difference. Okay, Mazal, take it away.
Okay, thanks. I am gonna have a timer going, but so thank you, Karen, for inviting me. I'm glad I got to speak on a topic that you haven't had yet somebody speak on. It's always important for me to, before I'm asked to share, to see that I have some sort of relevant experience. So I want to explain a bit about where I'm coming from. So from my experience, it's very useful to know where the person's coming from in terms of understanding how their experience can be translated or related to my own. In program, I want to achieve balance and a healthy behavior. And it really depends which angle am I coming from. Am I coming from extreme A or from extreme B? If I want to meet in the middle, it's important to know where I'm coming from. And so I just want to preface my experience with explaining a bit about myself. So I didn't say this, but I'm a sexaholic. And my first memory, anything to do with sex, was sexual abuse at the age of 4. This brought up a bunch of guilt, shame, feelings of responsibility. I'm sure a lot of people can relate. Um, and part of what came up was the utter unwavering belief that I was going to marry the person who abused me. Um, but it was a secret that he abused me. And so, from a very young age, I stopped talking about anything to do with relationships. Also, growing up, anytime there were talks about boys or are you interested or those kind of discussions, I always felt very, very uncomfortable. And I always just tapped out of the conversation. Um, And on the flip side, even though in public I'm the person who is not interested, don't talk to me about it, etc. In private, I'm fantasizing 24/7. I'm masturbating on a daily basis. I'm consuming pornography. I'm scheduling my life around when I can act out, um, etc. So I find it very helpful to equate my experience to different things just to get a better perspective. And so, um, in food disorders, we it's very clear that we have different issues. So it's very we have anorexics, we have bingers, and we have bulimics. And from my experience, that also comes into the way I view sex and sexuality. Um, I would say that I definitely had bulimic tendencies. On one hand, being very closed off, very shut off. On the other hand, being very acting out when it comes to myself. Um, so I'm just looking at my notes. I'm sorry. Um, yeah. So I'm just gonna jump into the topic at hand, which is going over sober dating. And yeah, I'll say that I'm an SA member, which has a very strict sobriety definition, which kind of played into my behavior of cutting out anything to do with sex in public. Um, so yeah, just that's the angle that I'm coming at my experience from. Um, I did not start dating until I was 3 years sober. Um, and I was 22, or 23, I don't remember. Um, my first date, um, what I learned from it was people had to poke me and to try to get me to go out because of this avoidant behavior. Um, and it was an obvious no. And what I learned about that first experience was that a lot of Al-Anon members really encouraged me to, I have the right to say no. Just because somebody's interested doesn't mean I have to be interested, and I have the right to say no. So that's a very first good lesson that I had to learn on an emotional level, and like exercise that muscle of I don't have to be interested. Um, the second experience that I had, again, I was set up with somebody, and I found it very important to be very straightforward and honest from the beginning. Um, and I told the person on in the first conversation that I'm not interested in sex before marriage. And he just said, not interested. And that, even though we stayed in contact and I had to learn to trust my instinct about when to give a second chance, when not to give a second chance, when to um, accept a reason slash excuse is legitimate versus when it's an excuse, and to really trust my gut when it comes to other people. But that idea of I'm just going to state straight out, this is my boundary and it's not going to change, was very helpful for them. because there was no getting around that. It was just it was a line in the sand, and it was a fact. I don't have sexual relations before marriage. Um, Another thing that I learned about the next person that I went out with was that things can be good on paper, and it's okay for them not to work. Nothing has to happen. Um, Things don't need to work out just because it looks to be okay. I'm going back to the thing that I learned the first time. I have the right to say no. Which for me, growing up, was with the background that I came from, the idea of I have the right to say no was for no other reason than just I didn't feel a connection. To me, that was again a muscle that I had to keep exercising. Um, I also want to talk a little bit about relationships that might be in a gray zone. Um, so I went to university in recovery, and in the subject that I studied, we would generally break out into smaller study groups, um, and I was so closed off to the idea of sexuality and dating and that whole aspect of things that I couldn't necessarily see when somebody was interested. I just perceived them as being friendly. And so I was very friendly back because somebody's being friendly to me. Um, and in the long run, this hurt people because people were interested uh, not people. Somebody was interested in, and I would use nicknames and be very friendly and if somebody's being kind to me, I'm going to be kind back, etc., without realizing that without awareness of the situation, without knowing what situation I'm in, being overly kind and overly friendly is going to do nothing but hurt this other person in the long run. And eventually this did end up hurting this person, um, because there was a total disconnect. Like I couldn't read the situation, and even when I kind of got feedback from outside people telling me like, "Hey, Mazal, like this is probably not as innocent as you think." Um, it took me a long time to realize and to put some boundaries there, and to again realize that it's okay not to want, even if the other person wants. And it's okay to say no based on the fact that I'm not attracted to somebody. I don't owe somebody the me being attracted to them. And even though in my mind there were things that were way more important than attraction, as still a component that is a necessity if I'm going to go out with somebody. And it was really important for me to get feedback from close friends who knew me and knew my proclivities, to see, the situation for what it was. Um, so this made me realize that I did want somebody that I was genuinely interested in, that I wanted, as opposed to somebody who checked boxes on paper. And I listened to some pep talks to rah me up about being vulnerable and actually asking people that I'm interested in, making the first move, and being willing to put away my old beliefs about how the relationship should go. In other words, the man should ask out the woman, etc. And to be willing to be vulnerable. And so I asked out a very good friend of mine. Um, Again, this came after praying about it and talking to friends and, praying for the courage to be vulnerable. Um, and the person rejected me. And I was really grateful that I had the opportunity to be in recovery when this happened, and to really take it as a learning experience to um to see that my value wasn't determined by if somebody finds me sexually attractive. Because this was a very good friend of mine. He said that he likes me, just he's not attracted to me. And to me, that was a very important lesson to learn, that somebody can love me and not be sexually interested in me, and that's okay. Um, I for my to protect myself emotionally, I did decide that I would not be active in the relationship. In other words, I would not uh, pursue this person or make contact with them, but I would um, be socially like I would answer them if they talk to me. I would talk to them if it was in a social setting, but that I wasn't going to be the one reaching out to them. And slowly, this kind of melted and softened to going back to things being normal. So yeah, like being vulnerable and being rejected wasn't the end of the world. And after some time, when the relationship got back to normal, I shared with this person about program. And after around a month and a half of them knowing that I went to SA, they decided to come also. And after coming to SA, they decided to ask me out. Um, and I want to stress here that I found it very important to protect myself, to protect myself emotionally, and to not just because I was interested in somebody, not say yes to somebody who is new into a addiction program. Um, and so I had to pray about it and let go of the desire for this person, and instead maintain boundaries that I felt comfortable with, that I felt that protected me. This came in the form of telling him that I'm not interested in going out with somebody who has less than half a year of sobriety, at minimum, and that I'm not interested in going out with somebody who hasn't gotten to step 9 yet. Um, and I prayed about this, and I decided that I would wait for him. And so I know this might be controversial, but this is what I prayed about, and this is what I decided to do. We had a talk, and this goes back to one of my earlier points of how important it is to understand um, where I stand, and to put things on the table. And I told this person, I will not go out with you unless you're serious and you see this ending in marriage, because you're a friend and I don't want to I don't see the point of getting hurt for no good reason. And so I was very upfront. We had a conversation, and he said that he was interested in marriage, and that yeah, and I was towards the end of university, and so I decided to just put my dating life in a pause. Um, and when this man had 6 months of sobriety, he had also reached step 9. He asked me out, and then came more, um, search within myself about what are good boundaries for me. Am I saying yes because I want to go out with this person, or because I have an idea of what this person is? Am I kidding myself? Yes or no? Am I aware of what it is going to be like to go out with a fellow sexaholic? Um, and so I sat down and I wrote, from the advice of my sponsor, I wrote a list of deal breakers. Because it's all well and good to look at the good things. But what are my deal breakers? And does this person have deal breakers of mine? Um, and also, sometimes, instead of when I would get into my fear and avoidant behavior, then every tiny little anything was, oh my God, it's the end of the world. We need to not go out because, some stupid, insignificant reason. And so it was very helpful for me to go back to, okay, what are the things that are the big things that to me are important in a relationship, the important that they happen. And if they don't happen, it's a deal breaker. And we started going out, and hmm, let's just say it was a learning curve. Um, I'm very grateful to have had really good friends in program who had dated before. I'm very grateful to have a sponsor who was understanding of where I was coming from in terms of the play between, on one hand, being very closed off and very emotionally closed off to natural desires for intimacy and etc. I if whoever is listening and can't tell by my name, so um I'm Jewish, and in my religion there is this idea of um lishmor nagia, not touching the opposite sex until marriage. Not a handshake, not a hug, not anything. Um, and I'm not religious. And this is a religious practice. And I, in the beginning, wanted to lishmor nagia. I talked to my sponsor and I said, I'm gonna lishmor nagia. And she told me, why? You're not religious. Why are you doing that? And I said, what do you mean why? I'm a sexaholic. And she said, that's precisely why you, with your background, shouldn't be, because I have this tendency to close off. Everything is sexual. She made me see that if I can hug a male friend at the end of a meeting, why can't I hold hands with the person I'm going out with? Um, I don't have to see everything through the prism of, if I hold hands, if I hug, if I have a kiss, if I whatever, then that means sex. And it was an opportunity to exercise this muscle of what is loving, intimate, physical contact that is not sex, and that it is okay, and that I'm allowed to be in touch with my body in a relationship. That being said, we put boundaries in place, me and my sponsor, about what physical boundaries I feel comfortable with, and what physical boundaries would I, if I pass them, consider it a relapse. Um, and so if anybody wants, I can go into that into more detail in the Q&A if it's relevant. But yeah, I had very clear boundaries. There wasn't like questions about um what is considered a relapse, because I did that in advance. I'm so sorry that I'm umming this. As I said, this is a topic that's harder for me to discuss emotionally, so I apologize. Um, yeah, I wanna spoiler alert. If anybody sees the my Zoom little icon, so I have a head covering on, which means I'm married. So obviously things went well with this person, and now we're married. And I want to talk a bit about things that were helpful for me on the emotional level. Once we were already in a relationship, if I talked beforehand about the idea of, being straightforward from the beginning and being honest and being willing to go after somebody that I'm interested in and being vulnerable, etc. Once I'm already in the relationship, now what? So for me, it's a lot to do with communication. In my notes, I have communication, communication, communication. Um, it was very helpful for me to understand that I'm not the same person. Just because I'm going out with somebody, the person is often the exact opposite as me, and that's okay. I had read a book I'm not gonna mention, but one of the things that this person writing about um, about relationships talked about was this idea that words don't mean the same things to different people. he gave an example of, let's say I say to my significant other, let's go play tennis on Sunday. And he says, fine, let's go play tennis on Sunday. And we meet up on Sunday. And he's in, you know, whatever tennis players wear officially. I don't know. I'm sorry. And I'm in jeans and a t-shirt. And I, want to just play to have fun. And who cares if technically I'm not supposed to pick up the ball from so and so place? We're just having fun on a Sunday. Like, it doesn't have to be so strict. And my partner comes with extremely strict, no, that's not how you play the game. Rules, 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 rules. Because to me, playing tennis is, a fun activity, and the rules are, meant to be bent, meant to have fun. And he plays tennis religiously, and it's, the rules are sacred. And so, even though we use the exact same words and we agreed on the exact same thing, which is let's go play tennis on Sunday, there can still be tons of miscommunication, specifically when I'm discussing things that I think are obvious. That I think, I know what a tennis game is, you know what a tennis game is. And so there are certain things that I discussed with my partner. Okay, what does this mean for you? We're using the same word, but what does this mean for you? The best example I can think of was I could not wait to have our first argument. From the beginning of our relationship, I told him I'm waiting for our first argument. And every time he would get annoyed, he was like, why are you waiting for us to argue? And knowing the fact that argument, the word argument means different things to different people, I asked him, what does argument mean to you? And he said it means screaming and shouting. It means we're not talking. It means we're breaking up. It means, an argument means, this cataclysmic event. And for me, an argument meant, hey, we disagree on something and we're going to see how we resolve conflict. And we're going to see, how that works in our relationship. To me, it was way less dramatic. Um, and I had to see that, okay, we're not communicating on the same wavelength. And so that was very important for me to be able to discuss why are we disagreeing on something. And the last thing I have to mention is that to me it was very helpful, and I'm grateful that I came into a relationship in program, was the idea of I am here to love the other person, and I'm here to um make them, I can't make anybody feel anything, but like I want to try to make the other person feel loved and appreciated, etc., etc. And for that to be my focus, as opposed to what you can do for me or where you take me or how you look or etc., etc. But okay, in the relationship, my primary purpose is to be loving. Um, and for that, it was very helpful for me to also read some outside literature about how different people feel loved, because the way I communicate, you know, love is not necessarily how the other person feels love, and vice versa. And so I just asked, hey, what makes you feel loved? Is it when I do things for you? Is it when I get you gifts? Is it when um I give you a hug or say nice words to you, or et cetera, et cetera? And um he feels love very differently than I do. And it's important for me to remember, like, hey, Mazal, you have a tendency to say offhand critical things and you don't mean anything by it. If my partner, his primary way to feel loved is when I say nice things to him, that is going to be very painful in a relationship. And to be aware, to be really aware of how my behaviors affects that person's ability to feel loved and safe in the relationship. um and Yeah, that's the end of my dating experience, because we got married, thankfully. And I'm also just gonna say that my last closing whatever is that things are not going to be like they are in my head. My life isn't a movie, and that's okay. And to really accept the fact that, you know, again, the things can just work out the way they do, and it doesn't have to be easy. It can be complicated, and that's okay. And I can work through those things as they come up. And yeah, that's all I got. I know that I still have 3 minutes left, but I always undershare, so I apologize. Um, and yeah, I hope that somebody managed to get something useful out of this. And thanks for being with me during this for me very vulnerable talk.
Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M and me, Justin B, on Reco12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform.
Wow, Mazal, thank you so much. It's so beautiful and so honest. And I thank you for your vulnerability and openness, even though it was hard. I hope it wasn't too hard, because that's not our goal. And I'm sure this will be so helpful to people young and old who are trying to figure out how to have healthy dating and healthy relationships while in recovery, having been recovered, getting back into the game. If you don't mind me asking you, the first question is purely technical. Can you share how old you were when you entered program, and how old were you when you got married to a healthy person in recovery? Because I think that might be really helpful. We here could see how young and beautiful you look. People on the line might not realize, and I want to give hope to the young people who might be suffering and think that they're just toast.
So yeah, at the age of 18, I joined Esteteen, Essanon for teenagers. And then I went from Esteteen to Essanon. And in Essanon, I realized that I also, should come to SA. Let's just put it that way. So I am sober from the age of 19, and I got married at the age of 26. You bring up an important point that it's really a process. It's really like a long process, and I wasn't fixed in a day, and I'm still not fixed. And but yeah, I'm sober since the age of 19. I'm in program since 18, and I got married when I was 26.
Wow. I really have the chills. I'm probably old enough to be your mother, but I'm sure it's relevant. There are plenty of people all around the world, all different races, religions, who might be dating. They could be your grandmother's age too. One thing I always wondered is, how did you feel about dating someone who was also in recovery? I don't know if they were in recovery for the same issues you had, because a friend was like, oh, I want to set you up with this guy who's in program. I'm like, no, thank you. One addict is enough for me. Like, I could barely deal with myself. Like, I don't need another person with all the crazies that I have. How was that?
So I had the benefit of like I knew that this was the right person, and I had prayed about it, and so for me, having a strong third step about like, okay, I gave my life over to God. Does he want me to pursue this? Yes or no? Was very helpful for me. It helped me remove some, doubts. And I think it really depends on, so we're both in SA recovery, for, I don't want to get too much into his, MO, but to similar things. And, it was actually, as long as the person is in good recovery, to me it was a bonus. He understood when I prioritized going to a service meeting, and I understood when he prioritized taking a call from a sponsee, and there was this understanding that our program is important, and was never a question about, oh, should you be going out another evening this week or so and so. And it opened up a lot of conversation when we were dating about, I can't do this. This is not good for my addictive personality. From my experience, it just opened up so much more conversation, honest conversation about, I need to stop. This doesn't feel comfortable for me in terms of my addiction. And there was way more open and honest communication. Again, so long as the person is in good recovery, to me, it was just a bonus. It was a bonus of understanding and and also extra support. Like, I know that this person has extra support in the fellowship, and um, to me, it was a plus. But it's also okay to say, hey, this is not something I feel comfortable with, and this is not part of my path and journey, and that's fine. There's a lot of other people that are not in program. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for answering that. I just hear a lot of really great, clear communication. A lot of, like you said, step 3. Hear a lot of step 10, 11, and 10 and 11 asking for the next right thought or action around different things. Would somebody else like to just go ahead and unmute and ask Mazal a question? Any question you have about her program, about how she works with others, the floor is open.
Hi, this is Amy. I'm glad to be here, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for your qualification. I've been listening to these meetings for a while, but it's actually not an easy time for me. So I'm glad that today I'm able to actually share and say hello. And I just got so much from what you said. It was like just what I needed to hear, and hearing how you communicate and take the time of clarifying what a reality is or an understanding is before jumping ahead. Just, was such a strong reminder of, not to make assumptions, and that one person's understanding is not the same. And the analogy you gave with the tennis was just such a good example. And I just really appreciated it. And I guess I want to know, would love to hear, for me, like just, part of like a compulsive behavior is just a lack of patience. And so I often lack the patience to get to that point of curiosity. And wanting to know, I just don't understand. Why would you do that? Or what were you thinking? So I would love to hear if you have anything to share about that. Thanks.
Let me just see if I understand about, how do I have the patience to like go in depth in every communication. Do I understand you correctly?
Yeah, because I feel like just for myself, if I'm like going into depth in every communication, it's just a point of exhaustion and explaining. And I just don't have that patience right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
Thanks.
I would love to hear. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. I'll say that when I don't do it and arguments ensue, or miscommunications or hurt feelings, then that's a strong motivator for me to like take the time to communicate correctly. So I like to joke sometimes that I progress at the rate of pain. Like I started doing this more when I saw that it was an issue. So that's one thing. Second thing is that when I know somebody and I've and I know their family and I've seen them in social situations and I've done this a couple times and it gets easier and easier and shorter because I know the background of this person. I know that, um, there are broad things like conflict. How does somebody respond to conflict and what does that bring up for them emotionally? And what does that mean? That's a big one. How do I feel about it? That's a big one. What do I feel about, valuing myself and others? Those are big ones. Like I can talk about like every tiny little thing, or I can talk about broad strokes of like, hey, how would you like conflict to look? Because we're gonna disagree. And so going from like the big stuff to the little stuff, I find helpful. So then I have like a foundation of like, I know how this person views conflict. I know how this person views raised voices in general. I know how this person views et cetera, et cetera. Like having broad strokes. And then I can fill those in when necessary with a sentence. So for example, hey, we have some free time. You want to go out? Okay, just to clarify, you want to go out to X, Y, and Z. Are you looking to spend time with me or to have fun out? And like that can be a very quick clarification. Like, hey, do you want something like what kind of thing are you interested in when you say let's go out? And it doesn't. When I have those broad strokes, it really doesn't come up that often. As long as I have that foundation. But if I don't have that foundation, then any little thing can blow up in my face. From my experience. Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Hey, Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss Reco12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G, Nikki M, and me, the moderator Justin B, 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to Reco12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform.
Yeah, thank you so much. It really does, and it helps clarify and offers tools of how to get there. So thank you.
Hi, this is Alessia. May I ask a question? Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. I really, really resonated with lots of things you shared, and I found it very helpful and inspiring. And I just have a question because you said something about that you had to learn how to say no. And it didn't mean that if someone was interested, that you had to be interested. And then you also talked about your deal breakers in a relationship. And yeah, I was just curious of your process of finding out when no is a no for you or what's a deal breaker. Thank you.
Thanks. So when no is a no for me is when again, praying to me has been very helpful. And so when it comes to going out, no is a no when I'm not interested. When I'm here because of if I'm saying yes because of a character defect, then it's probably a no. If I'm saying yes because I'm afraid that I'm not going to find anybody else, that's not a good reason to say yes, if that's the only reason. If I'm saying yes just because I don't feel comfortable saying no, then I should probably say no. If I'm saying yes because, Mazal, you're such a piece of shit, you're never going to find anybody better, excuse the swearing, then that probably should be a no. And so to me, like, I would say no if I had a good reason to say no. And as far as deal breakers, I sat down and I asked myself, what am I not able to live with? What will I not be able to live with? And what would make living very difficult? So, for example, one of my deal breakers was for the person not to be from the same cultural background as me. And that's not because I care fundamentally if somebody's from a different cultural background, but I know that that would make it much harder to communicate because the basic things are different, basic experiences are different. Because I know that my family wouldn't accept the other person. And so for me, it was easier to say, I'm going to date somebody from my cultural background. Then it's not worth the headache for me to not have that as a deal breaker. Another deal breaker for me was, what are things that just cause me anxiety just to think about them. So one of my deal breakers was somebody who gets very explosively angry. We're all gonna get angry, but somebody who has anger issues, to me, was a deal breaker. It was too close to things that I'd experienced as a child, and I was not interested in going out with somebody who was very aggressive in their anger. To me, I didn't want to feel like the scared little girl. And so for me, somebody who had anger issues was a deal breaker. Somebody who didn't accept that I'm in program and what that means, deal breaker, because to me, program was more important than any given person. And so it was just very helpful to think of, like, okay, what am I not willing to deal with? What am I not willing to compromise on? And there weren't a lot of things. It was something like 5 or 6. It wasn't a long list because, yeah, like there are certain things that are broad, and yeah. Hope that answers your question.
Yes, that's great. Thank you so much.
Do we have any other questions? Would anyone else like to come in and hear about how Mazal works her program, how she works with others, etc.?
Hi, Mazal. Gloria here. Hi. Yeah, thanks so much for your share. And you were talking about the addictive, like things that you were not wanting to do if they brought up addictive patterns in you. Just wanting to know what did you do if when addictive patterns were brought up?
So mainly this came up physically. So for example, let's say I'm not in the right headspace. I hope it's okay if I talk explicitly. I'm not in the right headspace to make out, and so I, would just say, like, hey, I'm not in the right headspace. I'm gonna stop. There, or for example, we were watching a movie and we didn't check what it was rated. It was like, we didn't think it would be problematic, and there was nudity on screen, which we did not expect to see. So we closed the movie. Like if something is, for me, not good in terms of my program, I can say, hey, I need to stop whatever physical action this is. I need to stop watching whatever this is. Or it doesn't have to necessarily be stop. It could be, I need to take a break. I need to pray. I need to recenter. Which is fine. I would say that those are the big things. In terms of things that came up, was either physical contact that to me was like too much in a given moment, or things that I didn't want to see, and I would just say, hey, can we close this? Can we, etc. But aside from that, those were the main things. And I just need to be honest with myself. If this is triggering for me, then I can, I can say, hey, I'm not comfortable with this and let's stop. And that it goes back to the question that Karen asked, which was, how is it to, go out with somebody who is in a say? And for me, that was part of what made that so easy. Is I don't have to explain anything. I don't feel comfortable with stopping. Or I don't feel comfortable going to X, Y, and Z. Okay, we're not going. Like there is no need to justify. So yeah. Okay. I see that Karen had to log off. She asked me to close if she had to leave. Are there any other questions? If not, we can go out with a prayer if nobody else has any questions. Okay, so if you guys want to join me in the Serenity Prayer, I'd be grateful. So after a moment of silence, for the man or woman who is still suffering, I'd like you all to join me in the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thy will, not mine, be done. Thank you all.